of our board is so appalled by the negative imagery, they want nothing to do with it. And there are some of us who see an opportunity. Our mission basically is to educate. And here's 50,000 plus people literally driving by the one remaining building we hope to acquire. And I'll talk a little bit about that experience. And it's an opportunity to educate if we can, because I understand the lines often are very long and people take 2 to 3 hours, kind of like going back and forth in the corded aisles, like going to Disney World. And they have time on their hands. And we're trying to reach out to the current owner to see, would he be interested in allowing us to tell a different story while he's making money doing his scare stuff for Halloween? Don't know where we are in that. But what had happened is there had been a groundswell for us to acquire the building. We met with many of the local legislators, including Senator Dinniman, and the Pennsylvania State Senate passed a bill unanimously to transfer this one remaining building, the old superintendent's quarters, to PMPA, to us, for $1, and it passed unanimously. It then went to the House in Pennsylvania's Assembly, and the General Services Committee is headed by a Western Pennsylvania state legislator who will only entertain selling us the building for $41,000, even though the Senate and the language of the agreement was for a nominal amount of $1.
So you got a bipartisan agreement.
Well,
it's stalled.
It was bipartisan in the Senate, unanimous.
And bipartisan is pretty rare nowadays.
Well, isn't it so? But for something that was to not only memorialize what happened at Pennhurst, but to memorialize the role that Pennsylvania as a state has played in ending institutions all over the globe. Dr. Conroy, our co-president, is helping the government of South Korea develop a plan to deinstitutionalize and close all South Korean institutions. He has done this in the Ukraine, horrible places where there's an enlightenment period, if you will, and it's not just here. And Pennsylvania is the leader in this. It had the first community-based service system in the world, outside of a few Scandinavian countries. It has gotten children by law to go to school. It led to, in 1975, the Education of All Children Act by the U.S. Congress, signed by the president. It is now the law of the land. So Pennsylvania has a historic role in this disability rights movement. And this building that we wanted to acquire, I think it was acknowledged by this bipartisan Senate approval. And it sits before this General Services Committee in the House, headed by this guy who I have not met, who seems to be unbending on selling us the property. So now we're debating on the PMPA board, can we buy this? How could we buy this? If we went there with literally cash in hand of $41,000, would he release the bill?
Well, I mean, first off, if you had a bipartisan thing that said it's okay, I don't understand why it's stalled. I mean, I get, but I haven't been up there in a while, and last time I saw that place, it wasn't in great shape at all. So I don't know where the $41,000 is coming from. You're doing a favor because of the cost of money. We discussed that, to tear it down. Yeah,
what's ironic is all the rest of the campus has since been demolished, including the capstone imagery was the water tower, which you could see for miles. That's all gone. The only building standing is this one building that we want on 4.5 acres to memorialize all of this.
Why hasn't that building been torn down?
because we had an agreement with the state. It was called a memorandum of understanding that if we perform certain things stable, the building's in actually sound condition, even though it's decayed a lot. So we repaired the roof. We did a few other things about stabilizing that was in the agreement. We've done that. We had a lot of the local assemblymen and state senators agree, and we're kind of stuck on this 41,000. And the ironic thing is, because all the demolition has already been done, to bring back demolition services just to remove this last standing building, if not turned over to us, would cost the state somewhere between $60,000 to $70,000 to demolish it, instead of giving it to us for historical reasons for $1.
So if they give it to you, it saves the taxpayers 20 to 30 grand.
Yeah.
Just off the bat. So why isn't that a no-brainer?
Well, it seems to be one to me. It seems to be one to all the members of the Pennsylvania Senate. It seems to be a no-brainer for everyone we talk to, pretty much, except Assemblyman Metcalf. We don't know what the rationale is for holding up this transfer. But that's where but we're still determined to make a significant use of this building, if nothing more, to memorialize what happened. We're talking about some outdoor displays instead of turning the building over, and it would take $3 to $4 million to turn it into a museum for public access with elevators and restrooms and redo the electrical and the plumbing and all that stuff. Maybe the building, just the way it is now, with educational displays out front, may be where we go. And we're still having that internal debate amongst ourselves. Our mission will never change. We've developed a series of 13 panels that describe the history.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
That has been very welcomed. Those panels have been in the U.S. Senate's rotunda in Washington, D.C. They've been in the Capitol building several times. They've been shown in South Korea. They've been shown now around the country. Constant demands. We've now made a condensed set of those panels into 3 panels for smaller venues that simply don't have the physical space to show all 13. Our website has had over 45 to 50,000 visitors. It's an idea whose time has come. We're a very small handful of people who have very busy lives, except a couple like me who are now retired. And I'm busier than I think I was when I was working full time.
Yeah, working ended at 5 o'clock before.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. And we are strongly motivated to tell this story anywhere and everywhere we can. And again, I encourage your listeners to go to our website at www.preservepenhurst, one word, preservepenhurst.org. It's just chock full of videos, information, history, the rationale for why our organization started in the first place. And we've recently become a membership organization. We welcome people to support our work and join in. And our next big deal is it's time for a National Museum of Disability History, whether it's in Washington or in Philadelphia.
Yeah, there's a nice Kirkbride Hospital still outside Southwest Philly. It's sitting there and be a nice place.
Well,
there's a couple places that
we like it. Our hope is somewhere, if it's in Philadelphia, to be in the downtown historic area with the National Constitution Museum and others. But that's our next thing, and our goal is this spring, hopefully at a meeting at the National Constitution Center, to invite the leadership of all the different disability, physical, intellectual, mental health, all the major organizations to sit down and start this journey and plan with us. And our hope is that Senator Casey, our U.S. Senator, has decided that he wants to be the spokesperson for all the people with disability in America that Senator Tom Harkins of Iowa was, and that the Senator Ed Kennedy was, who had mental retardation in his family. We need a champion.
Yeah, causes need champions.
Anyone who wants to step up, who has significant influence to do this, we would welcome joining with them.
And feel free to, exercise your rights. Call your senators. Call Mr. Metcalf. Ask him why he wouldn't do this. And see, what happens is these places were, I remember sitting there reading this stuff, and these are urban ruins. They're urban archaeological finds. They're cities that were the foundation of the city that sprung up around them typically, and now they're gone. There's this whole place there's a whole city. There was a whole civilization there that's gone, and it gives the ability to learn and explore within your own lifetime the ruins of something that was there. And there's a whole city. There's so much. You couldn't go to that place. Not now, I can't speak for now, but back when I went there, you couldn't go there and not just stop and pause in every room and feel the power of a place that held 5,000 people that was now silent. And it was very powerful. It touched you, and it made you wonder what happened there. And what these guys want to do is they want to tell you what happened there.
Well, my closest thing that I can suggest, I visited the Ellis Island Museum in New York Harbor next to the Statue of Liberty. That's where many of today's Americans and their children came to. It is impossible to go through that museum experience and not be touched by it, to walk in and see 3-4 stories high of empty suitcases when you walk in, and to hear the stories. We learn by stories. We learn more, I think, from stories than by data. And the stories that you hear in a museum like that and other similar kinds of museums touch people. And that's what our goal is to reach and touch so that the experiences that happened aren't lost forever. We've asked at a recent conference the agencies that serve people with special needs to please go back into their own agencies and videotape interviews, or video. We don't use tape much anymore, but to video interviews of the people they're serving, because they have stories. What was their life story? What can we learn from those stories?
Are there any HIPAA issues with doing that, or?
Not if people agree to be seen.
Okay.
Okay. So that's, if someone was concerned, obviously we would not do it. And we get so caught up in the rules and the HIPAA.
That's why I was
things.
asking.
Yes. As someone who's gone through several variations of HIPAA training, I often wonder who's being protected. But be that as it may, yes, we would certainly respect the privacy of anyone who didn't want to do it. But our experience is people want to talk about it. No one's ever asked them what happened to them, what their life was like, what's missing in their life, what would they like to do that they're not now doing. It teaches the professionals in the field. We're doing it because we want to be helpful, and sometimes we don't know that we're not.
Well, one of the interesting things about you is that when you bring up things like HIPAA and people can't see because it's radio, you have a reaction to it. And I get the sense that you've seen 3 versions of all these things over time, and you could argue either side of each one, and you've seen them in different incarnations. And this is just, I'm calling it HIPAA, but you know it by other things, and you've seen it come and you've seen it go, and you've